We'll get started here in just a second. Hi, Gene. Or to say, hello, Gene. Good evening, everybody. How are you? Welcome to the Wednesday Loving Kindness class. My name is Alex. It is wonderful to be here with you this evening on this very full class, so I'm very happy about that. Usually there's not too many people here at about 6:57 or 6:58, and they all just come storming in. However many are going to come. By like 7:01, and it was like maybe almost 10 till. I had plenty of people here, so that was awesome. But welcome to everybody. This is the class on loving kindness. We're going to do a loving kindness meditation, and that's what we kind of do here. But the classes here are a lot of them are relatively the same or similar format. We're going to have this short introduction. Then we're going to have our meditation. I'm going to tell you how we're going to do it. I'm going to guide it. So if you have any questions about what's going to go on, I'm going to kind of be really upfront with you at the beginning. Again, for the people who just came in, whether you're sitting in a chair or in a pew, if your feet aren't going to reach the floor comfortably, we have cushions in the back. You can just put that on the floor and put your feet on the cushion if you want to. And they have plenty of cushions in the back. So we're gonna have this meditation, which is gonna, I'm gonna guide, and then, afterwards, I'm really interested in your experience of meditation. Yes, I'm gonna ask you if you had any questions about, the instructions and stuff like that, but I'm really curious to understand what your experience of meditation is, whether something was easy or difficult or wonderful or not as wonderful. It's just your experience, and so there are no wrong answers, right? So I'm going to ask you about that, and sometimes I also have things I would like to share, Buddhist related, of course. And at this time, you can always bring whatever questions you have, or you can even bring them now if you want, if you have any questions about, whatever. Buddhist related, of course. But before we get to all that, can I get a show of hands? Is anybody brand new to the Dharma Bum Temple? Oh, wow. Awesome. How did you hear about us?
Online.
I was
looking for meditation.
Okay. Well.
Various people mentioned it.
Oh, okay. Awesome. Okay, awesome. I always like to know, just to kind of curious, is it just a regular Google search, or did your friends tell you, or whatever that was? Is there anyone here who this is not your first time at the Dharma Bum Temple, but this is your first time to Wednesday, the Loving Kindness class? Awesome. Thank you again for being here. And this word that we're talking about that got translated into loving kindness, 2,500 years later, is a word called metta, M-E-T-T-A. And this is a word from the Pali language, which is, very old, where we think that the Buddha spoke something similar to this. We're not exactly sure. The Indians didn't keep amazing records back then. And even, the sutras, the Buddhist sutras that you hear about weren't written down until maybe 500 years after the historical Buddha died. Back then everything was an oral tradition. You just were quizzed on it all the time. What is this sutra? And you had to repeat it back exactly in order to be able to teach it or to pass it on to somebody else. And is very strict. And so all of the teachings were passed down that way until about the turn of the Common Era, maybe the 1st century CE, and then they wrote them down finally. And they wrote them on palm leaves that were found. They weren't really found until I want to say the 1800s sometime. And then there was kind of a resurgence when they found these palm leaves and translated them all, and and that's why Buddhism kind of had a resurgence. But this word metta, M-E-T-T-A, is, when you have this ancient word and you try to translate it into English 2,500 years later, the meaning is so rich that it's not a one-to-one word translation. So it got translated to this word, kind of compound word, loving kindness. But it could also mean unconditional friendliness, goodwill. And these different translations come in handy depending on who you're doing this practice for. If you're ever doing this practice for an enemy, the words loving kindness don't really come tripping off the tongue. And so you would maybe use another translation like goodwill. And so you could have goodwill for anybody, even if you don't like them. And really, it's just a wish to be happy. And not just a wish to be happy, but a wish for others to do the things that cause happiness. So you want happiness for them, but you also want them to do the things that cause happiness. And if you know anything about the Dharma Bum Temple, if you know our motto, you know what causes happiness, right? The motto of the Dharma Bum Temple is think good thoughts, speak good words, do good deeds. And in a nutshell, even though that phrase didn't come from Buddhism, we just use it here because we know that those are the things that cause happiness. Our well-intentioned, well-intentioned, positive actions and thoughts and words. Hey, come on in, have a seat. And so we want to do that. Throughout our day, we want to engage in positive thoughts and words and actions because those create positive mind states. And we can test this out for ourselves. That's the one thing I really love about Buddhism, is that we can test out these teachings, and we're taught to not just take these teachings at face value. We're taught to put them into practice and test them out ourselves and find out for ourselves if they work. And if they work, great. If they don't, do something else. That's okay. It's not a problem. But we know they work. Okay, so kind of how we do this meditation is a little different than how it's traditionally taught here in the US or in this culture in the West. In the West, they normally teach it as we always have loving kindness for ourselves first, because that's the most important. Because if we can't have loving kindness for ourselves, if we don't have that experience of loving kindness in our own hearts, it's really hard to truly give that to another person. Because how could we? We don't know what it's like. And then, so we always start with ourselves, and then we go to someone who's really close to our heart, which is a loved one or a benefactor. We call them a benefactor. And then we would go to the neutral persons, someone a little further away from our heart. This is where we really begin to break down the barrier between self and other, where it gets a little more difficult. And then we do it for the enemy, then we do it for all beings, and then sometimes we just also would come back to ourselves. But we don't do that here normally, just because it's really, really hard. When you, a long time ago, maybe like a long time ago, like 20 years ago or so, these academics were having this conference with the Dalai Lama, and he was talking about loving kindness, or he was talking about something, I don't remember what it was exactly, and somebody brought up to him about self-hatred. Now, if you want to talk about self-hatred, we all know what that is, pretty much, right? Those self-defeating thoughts that we have, we all know what that is, because we're all, in this culture, we're all pretty much addicted to that. But the Dalai Lama had never heard of this. This was all foreign to him. So when they said like self-hatred or self-denigration, he kind of looked at them like he had to go to his translator and say, what are they talking about? Because that is not how they do things in Tibet, right? It's always love for yourself first, and that spills over almost automatically to other people. But he doesn't understand. He didn't understand this culture, and so because of that, I didn't make up this kind of modified way of doing it. But I found this, and I thought this is better. And so what we're going to do is we're going to first do this practice for our benefactor, right? And a benefactor is anyone who has shown us great love and great kindness. Anyone except a romantic partner. Anyone else is fair game. Mother, father, brother, sister, favorite teacher, someone on TV or from in history that they could be living, they could be not living, they could be your grandma who died a while ago, whatever it is. So there's a lot of flexibility here. And you're going to wish them loving kindness. We're going to talk about how you do that in a minute. And then after that, you're going to imagine them doing this practice for you. You see, you already have the experience of their love and their kindness towards you. That's why they're a benefactor. So you're just going to imagine them doing this practice for you. And the only thing you have to do is just let all of this in. Let all of their love, all of their kindness, all of these kind thoughts and wishes for your health and happiness and safety into your own heart. And if you want to put your hand over your heart, you can do that. And then you're going to have loving kindness for yourself. Then we're going to do this practice for ourselves. And then we'll do it for all beings. Right? So what we're trying to do is just kind of like tenderize our own heart before we get to the most important part of this practice of loving kindness for ourselves. We're going to say, we're going to think about, okay, I can have this for someone who I love. That comes relatively natural for me. And then, I'm going to imagine them doing this practice for me. And this is going to be difficult for some people, letting our benefactors loving kindness into our own heart. Right? And then we're going to do it for ourselves, which can prove difficult because we're not used to that. We're not trained this way in this culture. And that's okay. Just do your best. So this is a much kind of gentler way, I guess, of doing it. And something I like a lot. All right. Is there anyone here who's brand new to meditation? Okay. So you all know what you're doing. Good. Happy to hear it. All right. Oh, before we go, hi, Brian and Linda, and hi, Marcel. How you doing? Saying hello to the online people. All right. Again, I'm going to guide this meditation. Oh, yeah, really quickly. How we're going to do this really quickly. And so how we're going to wish loving kindness for somebody is in the Metta Sutra. There is a phrase that says radiating kindness over the entire world. And so we're just going to radiate kindness to these people. And however you understand that word radiate, doesn't matter. Just radiate to them. Wishing them happiness. Or if you want, you can repeat phrases of loving kindness to them. Come on in. Oh, yeah, shoes. Can you put your shoes up? Yeah. Thank you. So you can do that. You can repeat phrases of loving kindness, phrases like, may you be happy. May you be safe from inner and outer danger. May you be well in body and mind. All right, so we're going to wait for come on in, guys. Thank you for coming. Really happy to have you. Let's find a seat anywhere that's comfortable. Awesome. Okay, and for our people who just showed up, we're going to have the instructions are going to come during the meditation as well. So you should be able to follow along, no problem. Any questions before we start? And you guys, I cannot believe how packed this is. This room is. You guys, the online folks. All right, let's begin. And so to begin, just allow your eyes to close, making sure you have that nice, comfortable, and sustainable seat position so you're not likely to move around too much. And when we sit like a Buddha. And you can even imagine yourselves as a Buddha sitting underneath your own tree of enlightenment. Gautama Buddha had his own tree, the banyan tree or the Bodhi tree. But every Buddha has their own tree of enlightenment. So you can choose whatever tree you want, a big sequoia or redwood, a maple tree, a eucalyptus tree, any tree you want. You can imagine yourself there ready for the day's abiding. And this loving kindness meditation is said to be the sublime abiding. The pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, free from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. This phrase comes from the Metta Sutra, from the Buddha himself. And so to start, we're just going to get connected to the breath. So let's just take a deep breath all the way in and all the way out. Not forcing the breath, letting it be quite easy and quite natural at first. And then after a while, you can experiment with what kind of breath is going to really keep you anchored to the present moment. Because the breath is our anchor. The breath is our home, that one place we can always come back to. And it's important to know that as we do this practice of loving kindness, you always want to have at least about 25% of your attention on the breath, keeping you anchored to the present moment to make your meditation more effective, more peaceful. So just for the next couple of minutes, just rest as gently as you can in the sensations of the breath. Just following the breath all the way in, all the way out. And so to begin our practice of loving kindness, we're first going to think of a benefactor. And again, a benefactor is anyone who has shown us great love, great kindness, someone it's really easy to have these wonderful feelings for. You probably already have them. Mother, father, brother, sister, friend, favorite teacher, someone who's you've really benefited from their love and kindness. And just calling this person to mind, understanding that they just want to be happy. And you want them to be happy and to do the things that cause happiness. So just think of them in your mind's eye and just as best as you can, just radiate loving kindness to them. I like to think of like a beam of loving kindness going from my heart to theirs. And this beam is warm and it's just vibrating and pulsing just a little bit. And I'm smiling at them as I wish them love and happiness. I'm radiating all this kindness to them. And you can have more than one benefactor. It's okay. So the best you can, just radiate loving kindness to them. Maybe even smiling a little, because smiling during this meditation helps so much. So for the next few moments, we'll do this practice of loving kindness for our benefactor. shifting our focus just a little bit from doing this practice for our benefactor to now imagining our benefactor doing this practice for us. We already have the experience of our benefactor's love and kindness, their well wishes for us. So we're just going to imagine our benefactor and imagine them radiating loving kindness towards us, maybe smiling at us as they do so. And so your only job is just to receive all of their loving kindness into your heart. And this is where it helps sometimes to put your hand over your heart, listening to see if you can accept all of it. If there's any tension or tightness or any part of your hearts that's saying, I can't do this. I can't let all of their loving kindness into my heart. That's okay. This is normal. Can you then just take a deep breath and breathe into that tightness? Maybe giving it a little space. Don't ignore it. Just acknowledge it without judgment, without evaluation. Just breathe. Again, still smiling if you can. And taking in all of their loving kindness into your heart. And we'll do this for the next few moments. Every once in a while, just checking in with the breath to see if you're just still connected to the present moment. If you're not, that's okay. Just take a deep breath all the way in and all the way out. Get reconnected. Now, probably the most important part of this meditation, can we now have loving kindness and do this practice for ourselves? So before we start this, just call to mind your own wish to be happy, your own wish to be healthy, to be safe, to be free from danger, to be at ease in this world. The wish for yourself is the wish that everyone has for themselves. So we all have this wish. So you can either just radiate loving kindness back to yourself, or you can just repeat phrases of loving kindness for yourself. Phrases like, may I be happy. May I be safe from inner and outer danger. May I be well in body and mind. May I be at peace and live at ease in this world. Or any phrase that has a loving and a kind intention, that's fine. Keeping your hand over your heart if you want, making sure you're smiling. So we'll do this for the next few moments. This loving kindness that's so important for ourselves. And then finally, we can do this practice and explore the limitless potential of the heart by doing this practice for all beings in all directions. Whatever living beings there may be, the great or the mighty, medium, short, or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, may all beings be at ease. Upwards, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded. That's the potential that the human heart has. And so we explore this potential by doing this practice for as many people as we can. And we'll do that in this practice just for the next few moments. open your eyes when you're ready. And let's just take the next moment or two out in silence as we stretch our arms and we stretch our legs, keeping that mindfulness of loving kindness about us. If you have any questions that you want to ask, just get those ready now. I'm going to ask a few at first, and then we will begin. Just give us a minute. 60 seconds. How about that? Okay. So I hope this was useful and beneficial to you. Really quickly, any questions on the instructions at all? Hopefully they were relatively straightforward. Okay. And how about, like I said, at the beginning, I'm always interested, especially now because there's a lot of people I haven't seen before. And even for the people I have seen before, because your experience could be different every single time in meditation. And I'm always interested in, your experience of meditation, any part of this meditation that was easy or difficult or something you didn't expect, or if anyone wants to share just whatever their experience of meditation is. Happy to hear it. Yes, sir.
I was having a hard time clearing my mind today.
Mm-hmm.
I was squirreling pretty much the whole meditation. It's not. I can usually nothingness it, but not tonight.
Yeah.
And then a little. And I was like, oh, come on.
What do you
He
mean?
went away though.
What are the sounds from the?
No, I think it was a little buggy, but he went away.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and that's, and I'm really glad you said that, because that's just the way it is sometimes. You have this, you can't, whatever you do, you have this sound in your head, you have this guitar lick in your head, or this song in your head, especially you have like a song in your head or something like that, can be really, really hard, because you're trying not to think about it, and you just think, which just makes you think about it more. And, a lot of times when you have these thoughts, there's different ways, there's different strategies that we have to kind of deal with this. You can ignore it, or try to just meet it with some mindfulness, like, hey, there's all these thoughts, I'm not going to get attached to them. But sometimes if you had like a really squirrely day, you can't just let it go, right? So that's one way to do it. You can think about it in terms of impermanence, like, okay, like all these thoughts, I know that all these thoughts are going into my head, but it'll stop eventually. It's all impermanent. It's not a permanent part of kind of what's going on in my reality. And so you can think about it in terms of impermanence. You can think about, I have a lot of thoughts in my head. You know what? That's causing a lot of suffering. And this practice is all about lessening our suffering, not more of it, right? So I'm just gonna kind of think about it. I'm gonna think about it like that, Or And this is the great thing about it. This is kind of part of what the hindrances are. And the hindrances in Buddhism are just things that hinder our meditation, right? Things that hinder our mindfulness, and these kind of recursive thoughts are part of it. Whether it's restlessness and worry, sloth and torpor, there's like 5 different things: ill will, sensual desires, doubt, all these different types of things. And the great thing about the Buddha, who's giving you all of these strategies to kind of deal with them, the last strategy, when all else fails, it is to force it out. It's literally to force it out, to grit your teeth. I think he says like gnash your teeth and just force it out, right? And that's so practical. And you wouldn't think that this comes from a Buddhist teaching, but it does. And the thing that I love about these teachings is that the Buddha clearly understood humans. He understood the human experience. He knows how we are. He was a master sociologist, a master psychologist. He clearly understood the human condition. And I'm even more convinced of this because these teachings came from 2,500 years ago. And the human condition really hasn't changed. We still do the same messed up stuff to cause our own suffering then as we do now. It hasn't changed, which is why these teachings are so useful then and now. They're just as relevant. But the fact that you were able to say, you know what? Yeah, this wasn't great this time. And that's okay. That's the other part. That's the second part of it. And that's okay. Because it is okay. Anyone else?
Not necessarily tonight, because I've experienced a little bit of this, but not the buzz, not the little bug. But it was interesting, last night I went to sleep sort of early and I woke up and a thought that had been in my mind earlier, when I woke up, you kind of think you're a little groggy, and no, it was like a billboard irritating the fuck out of the language. And I thought, okay, I'll try and meditate. Just nothing worked. I even listened to like a guided thing, and it was so irritating just to have to like focus on somebody else telling me what to do. What I really wanted to do was like go run around the block or something to wear myself out, but it was cold and it was dark and it was midnight. So I finally just kind of gave up and fell asleep. But unfortunately, all these practices that I thought I could use were kind of like useless against this bad energy that is somehow stuck in my head. I woke up this morning and it was okay, but it's irritating. I suppose that physical thing might have been the best option, but like it was midnight or 1 or 2, I didn't want to look like a kook running around the neighborhood. Whatever. But sometimes it just seems so insurmountable, especially when you wake up like that. It's different when you're here and you can kind of focus and breathe. And you wake up and just be kind of weird. I had no experience.
So it looks like the strategy of surrender is the strategy that worked for you.
I think in the long run, yeah. It was just this conflict.
It looks like you wore yourself out to an extent that you just gave up.
I so struggled with all of it. I finally just like, I fell asleep.
And how often do we do that? A lot.
Well, this was pretty profound. Not often. I don't usually wake up.
Meaning that we all have experienced this.
Yeah.
Not that you do it all the time, but yeah. No. But it's important to recognize that, I've got myself in such a state that you have that moment like, I can't anymore. and you don't, and you fall asleep.
I eventually did.
Yeah.
All of the music and guided meditation, all it was just like chalk.
And a lot of times, like good physical exertion is a really good solution as well. I mean, of course, it's like 3 a.m. and you can't. Like what kind of crazy person jogs at 3 a.m. around the block? But it'll be quiet.
Well, at least I can laugh about it now. That's the good thing.
And I wouldn't put it past myself. If I would do that. I don't care if I'm like really struggling with something, and I've done it before where I just got up really in the middle of the night and I just went for a walk, for a run. Well, for me it's a walk, but for you it might be a run or some sort of exercise, some sort of something, push-ups, sit up, something, and that will also just kind of exhaust you as well. You'll just put your mind on something else.
It's good to hear all this because when it was happening, I just felt so like defeated. Like none of this stuff works. It's all a sham. I mean, it was so like worked up. Ugh.
Right.
But today's been good. So I'm over it.
Yeah, this too shall pass, right? Yes, ma'am.
I cried. I've never cried meditating.
What part?
The self-love part.
Mm-hmm. Good.
It's been coming up a lot lately in conversations with people. Like they've been asking me if I know how to love myself, if I like have a good relationship with myself, stuff like that.
And yeah, I remember there was this monk, and I forget who it was, who said, if you haven't cried deeply, you haven't even begun to meditate. And that always freaked me out because I'm not a crier at all, and I never cried. And I went to my teacher and said, I haven't begun to meditate because I haven't cried. And he was like, relax, don't worry. And then eventually I did, but it was like years into it because my heart was just that hardened, and the fact that that anybody can do that is just wonderful, because a lot of times we come to the realization that throughout our entire lives, we've been horrible to ourselves. We've believed the stories that other people told us. Maybe they were our abusers, or maybe it was just the negative self-talk that we learned to accept as normal throughout our life. And it happens so imperceptibly that just becomes our reality. And it doesn't matter what age you are, but whatever age you start to meditate, I mean, that's how many years of conditioning that you kind of have to overcome and unlearn. And it's not going to happen overnight. Yeah.
I'm usually like the kind of meditation that I really like to do that is really, I think, changed my relationship with myself, like capital S self, is really learning to enjoy sitting in the present moment, and like the foundation of curiosity and like wondering what's going on in my body and kind of around me, I think is really something that helps me. But today, when I've just been kind of like trying to figure out like how do I turn back inward, and I had some pretty powerful imagery yesterday about like I closed my eyes and just really felt like I had been like neglecting my garden on the inside, just like very vivid imagery of like rotting fruit, like dead plants, just not been paying attention to myself, and that was really hard for me. So when you were talking about like how like coming back to the self and like sharing that, I had that imagery in my head and like really like sat in like my dirt and just like got familiar with my smell of my dirt in my garden. And like I'm not usually one to be very imaginative in my meditations, but it really just like I like gave myself the space to just imagine like what kind of space I want to come home to, and just really like walked myself through a whole house that I built in my head. Like a beautiful library full of all my favorite books and like old book smells and like spiral staircase, all these things that were really allowing me to sit in what is me and not my feelings and not my thoughts and not what's around me. And that was like so special. It was very unexpected. That's not usually where I go when I meditate. I usually just try to like sit here and be like, wow, Dottie, you're awesome at breathing. Go you. But it was really cool to like have this little experience where I started in my own garden, ended up in my own little temple. Yeah, really special.
And it, however we get there, and sometimes it is through that kind of imagery that we have to, well, what is this? What is this? What is happening here? And your mind will give you the imagery that's appropriate for you. It looks like that really kind of happened, and that's fantastic.
Yeah,
that's
and
absolutely
like,
fantastic.
Just for other people who are maybe not as like imaginative, just like really thinking of the things that bring you joy and just like squishing it all into one space, because all of that can exist inside of you and you can incite those feelings. Like one room that I really imagined in my head was I like walked in and it was just like one big room, but the ceiling was like the kind of stars that you see in the desert. Like in Joshua Tree, you see thousands and thousands of stars. And like I imagined just like a bed in the middle and surrounded by water, so you're just like floating, just like really thinking about all the sensations that you really, really love that bring you close to yourself, and just like imagining things that bring that for you. It was very, very beautiful.
Good. I'm glad.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. That's wonderful. Anyone else? Well, yes.
You were asking for feedback about challenges, particularly when, the first two sections of loving a benefactor and myself, no problem, went through visualizations and feelings that were completely appropriate to the meditation. And then it came to loving the world, and my body put on the brakes. It's like, you don't have enough love to love the whole world. I'm love and regard for the world all day.
You're a nurse now.
Yeah. So I think my brain was just self-limiting and self-protection. It was a really interesting experience. So to keep it positive, I just imagined a subset of the community that I
That's perfect.
serve.
That's perfect.
And watch them in love. But it was just such a weird, interesting feeling to have my pretend, world community. Nope. Very strong message that was not an appropriate thing to be trying to do right now.
I love that. I absolutely love that. Let's think about that just for a second. You've been dealing with COVID for almost 2 years. Do you work at a hospital setting or community setting? So you've seen a lot of sickness, a lot of illness, I guess a lot of death. That's a lot for one person for an extended period of time. And then when you're asked to have loving kindness, because it's pushed your ability, it's to have compassion and loving kindness. You almost have like compassion fatigue. It's like, oh, I can't do this anymore, like empathy fatigue. And now you're all of a sudden expected to do this for all beings in all directions. No wonder. Like, no, that's not going to happen. And that's fantastic. And that's good. And that's good. I love that self-protection mechanism. I love how that happened. And I love how you just said, you know what? I can't do this, but I can just maybe look at people in my community and have loving kindness for them. And that has to be good enough, because that's all I can do. And that is fantastic. That is wonderful self-care. That is wonderful self-care. So thank you for sharing that. That was fantastic. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you for coming here. I can't remember the last time I had this many people. This just makes me so happy. So I'm here every week and every Wednesday, sharing in this practice of loving kindness. Thank you for sharing in my practice. Thank you for being here. That means so much to me. So let's just join our palms together out our hearts, please. And may the benefits of this meditation be received by all beings. May all beings be free from suffering. May all beings be at peace. May all beings be joyful and at ease. May all beings be happy. May all beings, or just beings in your community, be seen for the beautiful, radiant beings that they are. Thank you for coming. Thank you, guys. Wonderful to be here with you. Have a wonderful rest of your week. And we'll see you next time. Bye now. Bye, guys. Thank you, Marcella, Brian, and Linda, Jean. You guys are awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you so much. Hey, Tamara. I'm good. How are you? Good.